Sorry about the wardrobe, sorry about the lighting, sorry about the airplane going overhead. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but I clearly can. Anyway, I apologize for all of that, and it will all be explained. Well, not the airplane, but the rest will be explained right after the opening credits. Hello and welcome to another wonderful Monday here in the home office of Front Row Video Production and Big Tiger Productions. And let me start, and it will lead into kind of today's theme. Let me start with explaining the outfit. I was just outside earlier today, minutes ago in fact, getting a few shots with my daughters for a project. And I want to shoot this video really quickly and get on with other things, and that's why I don't have the usual ring light giving me a much better look over there. It's just the office lighting. So this will not be one of the great moments in my cinematographical history, but here we are. So what exactly were we filming? Well, every summer, our church has a vacation Bible school, and this is something that the average American probably knows what I mean when I say that. It's usually a week long. It's during the summer. It's sort of a little summer camp for church kids and any kids in the neighborhood, really. I've never been to a church that didn't advertise it to anybody in the neighborhood, anybody in the area who wanted to attend, who was of the certain age. And in my church's case, it's kindergarten through fifth grade. And it's got little Bible lessons and stuff. And traditionally, there is an opening rally. Now, when I was a teenager and even a kid, Vacation Bible School, or VBS, opened with, as part of the rally, it opened with skits. And during the week, you'd see, the next part in the adventure of whatever wacky characters had been written for it. And so I was a little dismayed, and became increasingly dismayed, the more I attended the church that we're attending now, and their VBSs relied on the prepackaged videos that the publishing company, Lifeway, I'll just say it, Lifeway, because I'm going to criticize them in a minute, the prepackaged videos that Lifeway created, and nobody was doing the live skits. Now, the real impetus for me to volunteer to do the skits was not just because I like acting and I have fun being in front of an audience, although that is true. That's not what made me finally say, hey, I'll do the live skits for you. The impetus was, for about 4 years, 3 or 4, I was in the audience sort of as an adult leader. I had my video camera there. I was getting footage so that we could show the parents at the end the kind of stuff that went on during the week. And every year, the videos were they weren't poorly produced, but they were clearly not written and not created by people who know how to engage children, which really isn't the hardest thing to do because children are not that hard to please. But I sat there every year at the back of the church auditorium, and the video would come on, and the kids were not paying attention. The kids were fidgety. The videos were boring. And not done in a way that gets a kid's attention. When I was a teenager and I was in skits for the church I was attending out in Connecticut at the time, the characters were over the top. We had pratfalls, we had goofy jokes. One of them was a safari, I remember that much, and we were all decked out in safari gear and trekking off through the jungle. And they were funny skits. They were written funny. They weren't funny just because we put on crazy costumes and amplified the caricatures. They were funny because they were written funny. These videos were just not, they were just if I had any hair, they would have been hair pulling. And so finally, after 3 or 4 years of that, I went to the woman in charge every year. About 6 months in advance, I said, hey, I'll do your morning rally for you. Now, Lifeway also publishes some written skits if you don't want to use the videos. And I knew I didn't want to use the videos. So I read the written skits for that particular year. And it wasn't any better. I am seriously contemplating writing to Lifeway and offering to be the not the VBS curriculum creator, but the one who creates the skits and videos. So anyway, I wrote my own. I scrubbed all of their material. I simply looked at what are the kids going to be learning in their classes each day. What's like the memory verse of the day or the key verse of the day. What Bible passage are they going to be reading from? What are they going to be studying? And I wrote skits and a scenario. I created the scenario and then 5 skits where the characters would engage in something. Some problem would happen, and the solution to the problem and the lesson learned would relate, so that then, if the teachers in the auditorium were paying attention, they could say in the classroom, remember how the professor did this or that? That's the same lesson that Peter learned when he met with Jesus, whatever. It's been years. It's been 3 years. So we did that, and my daughter and I, it was just 2 of us because at that time the church only had 2 microphones, and it's a big auditorium. If you don't have microphones, you won't be heard. Excuse me. Doesn't matter what time of day, doesn't matter how much sleep I've had. I get the yawns. So it was my daughter and I, and we created this thing, and we had a lot of fun with it, and the kids loved it. And as an added bonus, we could go around in costume to the classrooms and where they were doing crafts and having snacks and stuff, and engage with them even further there, so that by the end, there were kids calling me Professor Percival. That was my character name, a Professor Percival Parkertip. I delight in alliteration anytime I can. And actually my daughter was Penelope Penciltop, and she kept her whole costume on the whole time, including her ponytails out the side, so that there were kids by the end who didn't know her real name, and they just called her Penelope, and that was part of the engagement. I learned afterwards there was one little boy who was visiting from Texas. He was visiting his aunt and uncle or his grandparents at the time of VBS. And that little boy was sad to go home. He even left a message with his cousin, or whoever lived up here, to say goodbye to Percival. Okay, this is the kind of engagement, this is the kind of connection you can make when you're not just showing a video. Okay, when you come up with an absurd costume, and I'll show you some clips from what we shot in just a bit. You come up with an absurd costume, you put on an absurd character, and you create these interactions that are funny and engaging and still teach the lesson. It's a great way to do it. Now, I'm actually not a huge, I won't go into all the theology, but I'm not a huge fan of drama in church. But using skits in a summer camp setting, I have no problem with, and I have a lot of fun with it. And so this is the third year in a row where I have written, or will be writing, I'm actually recording this early enough that I haven't written them yet. We'll be writing the skits. I've created the characters, I've created the scenario, and we're going to have fun with it. And the kids are going to remember it, and the kids are going to learn from it. Which brings me around to what I was really going to talk about. Now we're over, 9 minutes into this video. And that is me as a writer. I actually don't enjoy writing. I should qualify that. I don't enjoy writing something that has to be consistent, has to be thematic. I have a lot of half-finished ideas on my word processor for feature-length scripts. But out of 90 pages, I get to about the 30th, and I go, I just don't know where this is going. I have read Sid Field's screenplay. I have read Linda Seeger's How to Create Memorable Characters. I've read a book called How Not to Write a Screenplay. So I've got some tools and stuff, but it's just That is not my strength. It is not my desire. I'm no Aaron Sorkin. I have written 5 screenplays that I've turned into short films. One of them was so almost directly adapted from a radio play. So I have written 4, written 4 and adapted a 5th one. But basically, I've written the screenplay, and I'm okay with those because they're short, and they're humorous and they're trivial, so that I can put in goofy stuff, and it doesn't have to be deep, and it doesn't have to have, there's a screenplay premise where you've got what's called the A line. At least this is the way we learned it in college. It's the A line. It's where the character is doing the physical thing. It's Indiana Jones rescuing the Ark. But then there's a B line. The B line is where the character experiences a personality improvement transformation. Indiana Jones at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark is a skeptic about religious things, and by the end, he definitely appreciates the reality of and the power of God. Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman is one that I think Linda Seeger brings up. He's kind of this womanizing playboy at the beginning. Doesn't have much money. He's not a rich playboy, but he's always hitting on the women at his parties and things like that. Any gatherings he has in his apartment, and by the end, he has learned to appreciate what women go through in the workforce, what they go through in a TV studio setting, the chauvinism they encounter, and he learns to treat women better because of that. So the A line is him getting a job as Dorothy Michaels in a soap opera, and the B line is him learning to appreciate women and respect women more. My short films don't have a B line. My skits for VBS do not have a B line. They are simply short, simple productions. In the case of my short films, they're for fun. In the case of VBS, they're to quickly introduce a theme, a lesson. And I can go nuts with those in ways that you really can't in something that you're going to turn into a feature film. Even a kid's kind of feature film. Okay, something like a Minecraft movie is the first one that comes to mind because it's out in theaters right now. Disney had a lot of kids' films in the 80s. Not family films, kids' films. Cheap production with lazy, lousy scripts. I could probably do those. But, for example, for VBS, 2 years ago, I was Professor Percival Parkertip. Last year, I was Marlon Marino. It all took place on a beach by a seaside. So there was Marlon Marino and Sandy Schellenberger and Beulah Boatwright. And this year, we're going to be in sort of a laboratory, and I am Dr. Werner von Willkommen, Zwielte, for German for fourth. And then my assistants are Heidi Heifenschweitzer and Gertrude Gutentag. I like alliteration. I like more syllables than you need. That's just part of the fun. So I can be goofy. I can be simple. But one reason I have not created my own feature film, and even now the idea I have involves adapting other sources, is because I'm just not a writer. I'm not. It's a skill set above me, and maybe someday. Anyway, I was going to talk more about that. It took a lot longer to get to my point because I was talking about VBS. Anyway, here's some quick clips, some outtakes of what will be coming to my local church within the next couple Sundays. This is take 2. Show you all the way in. Heidi, yeah, we are equal, we are symmetrical, yeah. Here we go. Here we go. I am Dr. Werner von Willkommen, Zwielte, und these are my apprentices. This is Heidi Heifenschweitzer.
Hi.
And this is Gertrude Gutentag.
Good morning.
This summer, the 3 of us will be taking a great big... Everybody looking pleasant, looking happy, excited to be at VBS this year? Yeah? Here we go. I am Dr. Werner von Willkommen, Zwielte, and these are my apprentices. This is Heidi Heifenschweitzer.
Hi.
And this is Gertrude Gutentag.
Good morning.
This summer, the 3 of us will be exploring the great big world of tiny little things. Good. I am Dr. Werner von Willkommen, Zwielte, and these are my apprentices. This is Heidi Heifenschweitzer.
Hi.
And this is Gertrude Gutentag.
Good morning.
This summer, the 3 of us will be exploring the great big world of tiny little things. Good.